Obi-Wan Kenobi is finally complete. We have been waiting for this since the moment Disney acquired Lucasfilm in 2012. At first it was supposed to be a movie, then it got canceled. Then it got repurposed as a limited TV series on Disney Plus, and it shifted creative hands over at Lucasfilms. And set 10 years after the events of Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, the series follows Kenobi as he sets out to rescue the kidnapped Princess Leia from the Galactic Empire, leading to a confrontation with his former apprentice, Darth Vader. There was a lot of anticipation for this movie, especially since Ewan McGregor was coming back as Obi-Wan Kenobi. I think people really thought Ewan McGregor was done. I think people thought Hayden Christensen was done. And we all bullied him for years because we all thought he sucked, but he's back and we're all embracing him now. Thank you! We can appreciate Hayden Christensen now, and he is back as Vader in this series. I'm going to be talking about every episode of Obi-Wan Kenobi. This is going to have spoilers in it, so if you have yet to see the show or if you have yet to catch up on the series finale, this is your warning to turn away now. The first episode of Obi-Wan Kenobi was honestly a disappointment for me. It really set the bar low for the series. There were aspects of it that I liked. I loved seeing Obi-Wan as a broken, cold Jedi who essentially, it felt like, cut himself off from the Force. I wonder who else did that and why the fans got mad. It makes sense, guys. Sorry. I love seeing him trying to reach out to Qui-Gon because at the end of Revenge of the Sith, Yoda sends Obi-Wan to Tatooine to bring Luke to Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru for them to be his guardian, but then also to go to Tatooine to try and learn how to be a Force ghost because his old master Qui-Gon was able to achieve it, and that's what Obi-Wan is trying to do. He's trying to reach out to Qui-Gon, and Qui-Gon's not answering him, or at least Obi-Wan thinks he's not answering him, and it's just, the first episode had this sense of dread with Obi-Wan that I loved. Just broken and lost, out of the game for 10 years. It didn't feel like he had his swagger that he used to have, and I love that. I think if you are out of the game for 10 years, you should be like that. I think that that is the perfect characterization. This episode also opens with one of my favorite opening scenes ever for any Star Wars content. And that is more of Order 66, more of the execution of it. And we see the raid on the Jedi Temple. We see actual Jedi die. And they actually had to put a viewer discretion tag on the episode because it was after one of the school shootings with kids, and this opening involves kids dying. The younglings die. So that set the episode off to a high standard. It was just the rest of the episode I felt like, okay, Obi-Wan's got to go on a mission for Bail Organa. Okay, he's got to leave Tatooine. His whole purpose here is to try and make contact with Qui-Gon and to look after Luke. I think a lot of people here had their expectations dampened because I think a lot of people thought we were going to have an Obi-Wan series where he was still in his prime as a Jedi, where he was probably fighting Tusken Raiders and he had to use his lightsaber to fend them all off, and somehow the Empire would probably get a hold of Luke or something. I feel like that was a lot of people's expectations. But you know what? I've come to realize that a lot of our expectations are just wishful thinking. There's things that pop up later in the show where I said, okay, based on this episode, I think that's going to happen later. And then as the episodes went on, things like that weren't happening. So I said, okay, I guess not. They're not going to happen. And then when I get to the finale, I'll talk about some things that do end up happening. But for me, I think fans are just holding things to too high of a regard. They're writing out series and movies in their heads, and when things don't go their way, when they see one thing that doesn't work, they just hate the entire thing. Like I said, concepts of this episode worked. The rest of the episode really didn't. Once you get to Alderaan, which, by the way, I love the look of Alderaan. I feel like the city in Alderaan is like Corneria from Star Fox, just like nestled in the valley of like mountains with like water surrounding it. Love the look of it. But when like the Grand Inquisitor's goons get to Alderaan and they're chasing Leia through the forest, it's one of the worst chases I've ever seen put on screen. It really did feel like it was a low-budget film. And I remember sitting there when that happened. I was like, this is the best they got. Luckily, episode 2 picks up significantly. It's still not great, but it's Obi-Wan and Leia in like a city trying to evade the Inquisitors and the Empire. Was it Coruscant? Did they go to Coruscant? I forget. They go to the planet Dayu. And the city there, I just love the look of some of the cities in Star Wars. Like, look at some of the sci-fi content that came out after Star Wars, like Blade Runner. Star Wars directly influenced Blade Runner, but the looks of like the cities in Blade Runners, the look of Los Angeles in the future really inspired cities in Star Wars like Coruscant and the city in Dayu. Just damp, dirty, a place you don't want to be. That's what I loved about this episode too. I loved Obi-Wan just actually accepting his mission and him realizing that he may have to listen to a 10-year-old Leia to escape. I love him meeting up with a Jedi imposter, Haja Estri, who's played by Kumail Nanjiani, who's pretending to be a Jedi. I love that. That was a great idea. I feel like there would be people that would pretend to be Jedi. They're like, yep, we can't be a Jedi, so let's just impersonate one, pretend to be one. There you go. I love that. That was really good. Reva is a character that has gotten a lot of flack. And I don't really understand why. Because her arc throughout the entire series really resonated with me. I just think it took time to develop her character. And I think people wanted everything spoon-fed to them right away, which is something I don't like about fandom anyways nowadays, where everything has to be told exactly how they want it and right away. And it takes 5 episodes to learn what Reva is actually about and who she is. And I love that about her, and she has this huge redemption arc that just boosted her character significantly. And this episode also made a controversial choice of stabbing the Grand Inquisitor, and people thought he was dead. Fans thought that this had broken canon, and this was just another reason for people to fling their shit in the air and be like, Disney sucks, it's Star Wars, when it was so obvious the Grand Inquisitor wasn't dead. They wouldn't intentionally break canon like that, despite what clickbait YouTube channels are going to tell you. They wouldn't do that. There's no way Lucasfilm would allow that. I do wish that the Grand Inquisitor was played by Jason Isaacs, but Rupert Friend did a really good job. Episode 3 is by far one of my favorites of the entire series. It might be my favorite of the series, and it's where Vader and Obi-Wan meet for the first time since Revenge of the Sith. And they briefly fight. Obi-Wan's like out of it. He gets his ass kicked by Vader. He gets burned by Vader too. And Obi-Wan just looks at Vader and he's like, what are, like he knows it's Anakin. He's like, what are you? And Vader's just like, I am what you made me. Yeah, and this really showed that Obi-Wan was so out of touch with everything from the past 10 years. With the Force, being a Jedi, he has given up hope. That is why Vader beats his ass in this scene. It was one of the most badass Vader scenes I have ever seen put to screen. Episode 4, I don't really remember. I feel like I liked it, but I don't remember. Is that the one where Obi-Wan and Leia are on like discount Tatooine and they hitch a ride with that dude and the stormtrooper gets chopped in half? Yeah, I don't really remember. I think that's it. I don't really remember that episode. And it was only 2 weeks ago. I'm old. Oh wait, this is the first one with Ice Cube's son. He plays Roken. Yeah, I think this is the first one with that. Yeah, I think this is like the preparations. I think this is like the preparations for what's to come in episode 5. And episode 5 delivers the goods. The Grand Inquisitor is back, and it's amazing. There's a great battle here. Vader shows up with even more badass Vader shit! It's awesome! It's great! I love it! Love it! Love this episode. Love that you see the connection here as to what Reva was at the beginning of this series. So she was actually a youngling that witnessed the murder of all the Jedi, that witnessed Anakin and the Stormtroopers marching into the Jedi Temple to wipe out all of the Jedi, and she witnessed it. Now she's traumatized by it, and she even has moments where she's like, I don't know if I could carry out my job, and she's really starting to second guess everything. I like that she has those moments of inner conflict within her, and the battle in this episode is just awesome, and everything with Vader, the Grand Inquisitor coming back at the end, awesome. Episode 6 was a finale for sure. There were elements of this finale that were rushed, I will admit, but it really didn't bother me. It delivered everything I wanted from this finale for Obi-Wan Kenobi. I wanted a rematch with Obi-Wan and Vader where Obi-Wan was actually stronger now, not weak like he was. And I knew that that was going to be his character progression throughout the entire series. And man, did this lightsaber battle between him and Vader kick-ass. I loved it. Loved it. I loved how there's parts. I love how, like, the first half, Obi-Wan's getting his ass kicked, and then the second half, Vader gets his ass kicked by Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan just is, like, puts on, like, God mode at one point. He's, like, using the Force to, like, chuck rocks at Vader. Vader's trying to deflect him. He can't. And there's one point where Vader just throws Obi-Wan into the ground. He's throwing rocks on top of him, and Obi-Wan comes back later, and he's like, that's it. We're not done, bitch. I'm gonna fight you. And they start fighting again, and it's, oh, man. It delivered for me. Yes, there are elements that are rushed. Maybe the Reva looking for Luke thing on Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru's farm didn't really work for me. I mean, we just had somewhat of a redemption for her in the last episode, so that didn't really work for me. Leia's barely in this episode. It was more about Obi-Wan and Vader and their rematch of the century as it has been billed at Star Wars Celebration in the past. Look, people were thinking like, oh, if they make an Obi-Wan series and Vader's coming back and they're gonna fight, well, that's just breaking the continuity because Vader in A New Hope says, when I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master. But I still think that those words ring true because Vader was still learning the ways of the dark side. He was still learning that Obi-Wan still had all this power over him, that he couldn't beat Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan bested him, and what I loved so much about this fight too is that Obi-Wan actually breaks Vader's helmet. So you briefly see Hayden Christensen, and the voice changer switches between Hayden Christensen's voice, a muffled Hayden Christensen's voice at that, and James Earl Jones's voice. And something actually that I didn't mention about episode 5 that I want to bring up real quick before I forget. There are flashbacks to begin this episode and sprinkled throughout the episode where we see a de-aged Hayden Christensen fighting a de-aged Ewan McGregor. So it's young Anakin, young Obi-Wan, back when Anakin was Obi-Wan's Padawan, and their lightsaber fighting. And it really actually showed the bond between Obi-Wan and Anakin a lot more than Attack of the Clones did, because those flashbacks are Attack of the Clones era, and it really showed that they had this brotherly bond, like Revenge of the Sith did. I wish that was more present in the prequels, but it's over and done with. Wishful thinking. Back to the whole finale thing, yeah, I love that. I love that we actually got to see part of Hayden Christensen in the Vader suit, because people were like, whoa, hold on, Hayden Christensen's in the show, but where is he? We see Vader and we hear James Earl Jones, but where's Hayden Christensen? Well, Hayden Christensen is in the suit, guys, okay? Seriously. After this happens, he miraculously somehow fixes his helmet, because the next scene with Vader, his helmet is fixed and he's on his castle in Mustafar. A cameo I did not expect to happen. Ian fucking McDiarmid comes back as the Emperor and bitches out Vader. He's like, your anger for your master has taught you terrible ways. Stop it right now. And Vader's like, yes, master. Rise. And then we get another cameo, and Obi-Wan, after he goes to visit Owen and Beru's farm, and he meets Luke for the first time, which is really great connective tissue from this episode to A New Hope. It really explains how Luke is aware of Obi-Wan Kenobi, but doesn't know his actual Jedi name. Obi-Wan probably introduced himself as Ben. The only thing we hear Obi-Wan say is, hello there, in reference. Love that. But we also get to see Qui-Gon Jinn come back, and it's Liam Neeson. And he's a Force ghost. It's amazing. It's one of the things I've wanted to see in live action for a long time. The show mostly delivered what I wanted from either an Obi-Wan show or an Obi-Wan movie, even if it wasn't what I fully expected it to be. I did not expect the Grand Inquisitor or the sisters to be in here. I did not expect to see a 10-year-old Leia be the main focus of the show and that be Obi-Wan's mission. But you know what? It mostly delivered despite some elements and an episode or episode and a half that really didn't work for me, and in the end, Obi-Wan was just satisfying for me. I think that there's enough connective tissue to the trilogies that made me dig the show as a whole, and it expanded the continuity of the Star Wars universe, and it made sense within the continuity that takes place between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. I don't think anything's broken here, and honestly, this show's a lot better than the Book of Boba Fett, which was disappointing and just became a Mandalorian show at the very end. So those are my thoughts on Obi-Wan Kenobi. What did you guys think of the show as a whole? Drop me some feedback in the comment section below. I'll leave my link to my website in the description below as well. You guys are the best. Thank you for watching. My name is Alex Madden, and I'll see you at the movies somewhere.